Now we are live. Good
Yay.
evening, everyone, and welcome to our live stream. I'm Engy Yehia, the brand ambassador of IH Cairo, and I'm hosting for tonight's discussion on CELTA Keeping It Real. We have the wonderful Laura here to share some of her valuable insights about CELTA journey to make it easier and more successful. So, hello, Laura.
Good evening. Ramadan Kareem to you and everybody else. If anybody's watching us, if you're here yet, welcome. We all hope you had a very nice iftar. We were just comparing our Ramadan decorations.
Yeah.
Engy, of course, has
Yes, me and you.
got a far better collection than me. But I'm trying to keep up. I have my Ramadan lights, my Ramadan cushions. I have fanus in the background. So
Yeah,
I'm
me too.
trying. Well,
Yeah.
yes, she's definitely got the best cushions. I'm having cushion envy.
Okay, so
Right.
thank you so much
Um,
for joining us this live video,
yes.
and it's an honor to have you share your expertise with all of us today.
All righty. Really welcome everybody. We'll try and keep you not keep you too long because we've all been watching the Ramadan series, and
Yeah.
we've got Hakarab. I mean, I want to know what happens. I mean, there's some serious adventure going on. I've been watching
Sorry again, what's the
Meliha,
name of
and
the
I've
series?
forgotten how to pronounce it. Meliha, yeah, Meliha, and
Meliha?
the one hunting with scorpions. Big drama.
Okay.
And then
Uh,
there's the one with the Arab, with
حرب
serious
العقارب?
gangster stuff going on. I'll try
Actually,
and
I'm
remember
not
his name in a
following
minute.
here, so I cannot. I
Oh, it's
didn't, I
great.
didn't get the name of the series.
Oh, serious drama. Serious drama. Right.
Yeah.
Um, so we're going to try and answer some of your questions about,
Yes.
like I said, the session is about keeping it real. Um, so we're talking a bit about expectations, when you do the CELTA course. But just before we sort of go down that road, of course, there's been a huge sort of, load of chatter on social media about the latest increase in prices for the CELTA course. Of course, understandably, it's not a small amount of money. And of course, Egypt, like many countries, is in the middle of a horrible currency crisis. I mean, even in my own country, the UK, people are still complaining about price increases. But of course, it affects countries like us more because the currency that we have is weaker than other currencies. However, I want you to think of something before you start going, it's too expensive. So I just looked, when we talk about expensive, okay, yes, £45,000 is a lot of money. But I also checked the price of the latest Samsung S24, 58,000. Then I looked at the price of the latest iPhone 15 Pro, 70,000 plus. Right.
Mm.
Now, yes, of course, everybody likes a nice phone. Um, but, think about what a phone does. I mean, a phone can A, be lost, it can be stolen, all right, it can be damaged, all right. Um, and how often do you change your phones? I'm sure many of us change our phones every 2 or 3 years. So keep
Yeah.
thinking about this when we say expensive 70,000, 58,000. And unfortunately, our mobile phones don't make the coffee. They don't cook our meals and they don't clean the house. Yarit, yani, I wish. Ananussi. If they did, I would pay 100,000 if they did. Um, and it doesn't get you a job. Okay. So think about that. I mean, okay, unfortunately, a CELTA doesn't make us any coffee. It doesn't cook our food. It doesn't clean the house. Um, but it can help you to get a job. And unlike a mobile phone, you don't need to change it every 2 or 3 years because it's forever. So whilst people are understandably worried because we don't all have money to burn unless we're millionaires, but it's about what's important to you. All right. Yes, I love spending money on clothes, for example, and I'm too gilder to buy an expensive mobile phone. I have a Xiaomi, but I would rather spend my money on either things to make me happy. Okay, clothes is one of them, but also when it comes to my own development,
It
then I'm happy
deserves.
to spend the money. So
Yeah.
just, you know, just sort of keep that, as I say, I've said it already, keep it in mind. 45,000 versus 58,000 versus 70,000. All right, I'll leave it there. So Engy is going to ask me her first question, and later on you can also ask your own questions. So feel free to add questions in the chat box, and we will get to them. Okay.
Okay, so let's start with the first question. Will the CELTA transform my teaching as an English teacher?
Well, big question. The answer is yes and no, because there are many, many answers to this. This depends on how you came to the course, you know.
Mhm.
Okay, we all learn at different paces and in different ways,
Yeah,
according to the way the information is presented to us. There's lots of research on all of this. Um, but of course, um, when you do a CELTA course, you're usually doing it within quite a short time frame. So this comes back to your kind of mindset. And I made a list of types of CELTA candidates that I encounter. And I mean this in good humor, but something to think about. All righty. So some people come to the course with a sort of very Olympic athlete mentality. You know, they want to get the highest grade, they want to be better than everybody else. So I call that person the Olympic athlete. All right. Then we've got the Yes But Club. Okay. They like to blame everybody else. They blame the students if the lesson didn't go well. We also have somebody called the Space Cadet, who sort of lives on a different planet. Then we have the confident pilot. So this candidate likes to fly alone because he or she thinks they don't need any help. Then, of course, we've got the grammar monster, who believes everything is down to grammar and the world will not be a happy place without lots of grammatical exercises and grammar formulas. Then we've got the tech monster, who loves technology, which is sometimes a very good thing, but to the extent that, you know, the students might not always need it, so they don't always think about it. All right. Then we've got the information overloader, who gives students too much information in one lesson and wonders why the students don't understand it. All right. Now that's a lot of different types of candidates. And as I say, this is tongue in cheek. So they come to the course with very different expectations and very different personalities. So if you're kind of a very grammatical type teacher, you know, the grammar monster. Of course, we should be grammar monsters. We are language teachers.
yeah,
Um, your mindset is different, isn't it? Because you think that the only way to teach students is by doing lots and lots of grammar. So in which case, you won't transform as much as you could do because your mind is still fixed on that way of teaching. All right.
yeah,
So, you know, transformation is, you know, can be a very small process and it can be a very large, you know, process. I mean, usually when we say transform, we do mean something major. So maybe your transformation will be a bit less, you know.
yeah.
If you're a member of the Yes But Club, you know,
Mhm.
after the lesson, oh, why didn't my lesson go well? Yes, but yes, but yes, but yes, but you know, they always question the feedback and always question, you know, blame the students. Oh, my lesson was great, but the students were not cooperative. The students, it's like Oscar Wilde when he was asked about one of his plays. He said the play was brilliant and the audience was dreadful. Um, so you know, if you think like that, then of course your transformation again is going to be limited. So you know, people say in the interview, yes, I'm ready to change. I've come for a major change in my, you know, teaching practices. And some of you definitely have, you know, and you all have. I mean, I respect everybody who comes to a CELTA course, especially when you're experienced, because you're making such a huge change to your, you know, teaching personality. You know, it's almost like a conversion. But you know, do think about why you're here, especially you know the Olympic athletes. The Olympic athlete is here to get an A. You know, there's here to get the grades, so they're not really thinking about the students. And if you're not thinking about the students during your teaching practice, again, you won't transform your teaching because you'll be too busy thinking about your performance.
Yeah,
Now, remember, a lesson isn't a performance, it's a lesson. And the purpose of a lesson is that students should learn something. Okay, they should learn something and they should practice it. So if you're too busy sort of, oh, look at me, I'm amazing, then then the transformation is going to be that much less. All righty. So
Correct.
all these different types of teachers, um, I'm also one of those in many ways. I'm sure all of these apply to many of us. We probably have two or three of those people within us. But these affect the speed and the extent that you will transform as a teacher, you know,
Mhm.
especially if you're not sort of participating. I mean, we often joke about space cadets. Space cadets is a sort of British term for people who are living on a different planet. You know,
Mhm.
we tell you things, and then you say to me 3 days later, "Oh, do we have to do this?" And I wrote it, and I sent
Mhm.
you messages, and then you behave as if I have never mentioned these things in my entire life. So again, you're not focusing. So transformation is very much in your hands for the most part. Of course, it's also in our hands. I mean, it's up to us to give you useful sessions, lots of guidance on the course. All right, we are part of your transformation. It's a
Mhm.
two-way street. So we can do half of the job for you by providing all of these things, but then the other half has to come from you. All right. So
Correct.
if you come in with a very fixed mindset, then your transformation is going to be limited. If you're the teacher
Yeah.
who insists on following the book, exercise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, without trying to adapt it, then you're not going to transform, are you? Because you're doing pretty much the same thing. And that's the same thing as the teacher who wants to do the same things that he or she does where he or she works, which might be fantastic where you work, but might not fulfill the criteria. Okay,
Yeah.
so again, that's going to result in a limited transformation. So you might be thinking, well, what on earth helps me to transform? Well, what helps you to transform is to come in with an open mind and to think, okay, I'm going to hear and see quite a lot of things that I might disagree with, but I need to think about why they could be useful. All right.
Correct.
Because we can't develop if we're not ready to embrace things that are alien to us. All right. Um, we especially if you're older like me. I mean, I learned to teach very much during the direct audio lingual era. So I was brilliant at drilling. I did my Delta during the PPP era, drilling queen. And then, of course, other methodologies came along, other frameworks, test, teach, test, guide discovery, text-based. So you have to be ready to try different things. So that's the same on the CELTA course. If you're ready to transform, and I can tell you the characteristics of those who are very willing to transform, is that, after the sessions, they download the session notes, they read them, they refer to them before TP, they read the instructions very carefully for the assignments. I can see that they've, watched our video clips, they've looked at everything. You know, this tells me a great deal. So, yes, we want you to transform, all right, to the best of your ability and, within the time frame that we have. But it's a mutual thing. We have to help each other. We want to help
Yes.
you achieve your personal best, um, but we can't do it if you're not willing to do the other half of the job. It's like you can take the horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. So, bear this in mind. And it's like our students, when we're as teachers, we know that some of our students pick up things more quickly and some don't.
Yeah.
So you'll find, for example, at the end of a CELTA course, because the grade range is the pass range is very wide. So some people will be at the weaker end of the spectrum and others will be at the stronger end of the spectrum. And some of our students, they get higher marks than others, and others get lower marks, and others get medium marks.
Yeah.
So, this comes back to the input doesn't always result in, doesn't guarantee output. I was accused of providing a lame excuse when I mentioned this in one of the Facebook groups. But there's plenty of theory to back it up, plenty of reading. Just because we give you the input, it doesn't necessarily mean that you produce it. But
Yes.
of course, we're here to try and help you produce it as much as you can. I could go on about all of this all night, but I won't, because I want you to stay awake. So, next question, please.
Interesting. So I've been teaching for, we can say, 5 6 years. So I have some background, teaching background. So do you think that my academic background will help me or will guarantee me a higher grade?
I can only say inshallah, but it's certainly not guaranteed. And that's just the same for everything else.
Well,
Um, it will certainly be useful because, as I say to everybody I interview for the CELTA course, if you're experienced, then you are very much used to standing up in front of a group of people, unlike the
mhm,
inexperienced teacher. So you have that confidence. You can deal with a classroom because you have all that experience.
yeah.
And sometimes we get people on CELTA courses with masters and doctorates, so they might have an excellent theoretical base, which
Mhm.
again comes in handy. Um, Especially because we don't deal with detailed theory on the CELTA course. So for them, it'll be like a revision. However, it doesn't guarantee that you'll get a higher grade. All right. And this comes back to the are you willing to transform? Because sometimes when people have a very strong academic background, then they sort of think that it'll automatically propel them into an A or a B. And unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. It would make our
Yeah.
lives easier if it did, but unfortunately, afraid not. Nothing is a guarantee for anybody.
Okay, so I'm joining, as you know, I'm joining the CELTA course this April, inshallah. So I want to prepare myself very well to ensure the best outcome from the CELTA course. So yeah, what should I do, or what can I do to prepare
Okay,
myself for the CELTA
that's
course?
a very good question. I mean, ensuring a good outcome to me means passing the course. All right.
Mhm,
So to me, that is a good outcome. Anything extra is icing on the cake, and that's great.
mhm,
People who've been accepted onto the CELTA course, you've all been given a pre-course task that Auntie Cambridge uh, has designed for you. And if you have done the interview with me or Ilham at the International House, then we send it to you, but it's the same everywhere else. It's 35 pages, as you know. There's quite a lot in there. And this is very good preparation. Okay, it's not exactly, it's not going to guarantee you a higher grade or anything, but it helps you to refresh your memory of terminology.
yeah.
Um, it'll get you to think about certain things like certain tenses, what you have to bear in mind when you work with this tense. All right. We can't guarantee that every set tense that's mentioned in the pre-course task will be dealt with on the CELTA course because you're all teaching different lessons. All right. But it's certainly a good help. It's very useful. And the reading list that accompanies it, things like learning, teaching, it's probably a good idea to read at least 2 or 3 chapters before you start the course. Look at the how to teach grammar sections, how to teach vocabulary. Maybe have a look at the receptive and productive skills things. Okay. So those are things that you can do. It's good not to over prepare because I think if
Mhm,
you sort of try and run yourself into the ground, you might end up exhausted before the course starts. But if you are preparing in advance, then just read a little something, once or twice a week. You don't
mhm,
have to read a whole chapter, read part of a chapter and, take it slowly. Okay,
mhm,
because it does help and it gives you some preparation. So you've got the pre-course task, which was designed to prepare you, um, and you've got some lovely videos, like Jo Kakonga, on her sort of ELT thing. This is very useful as well. I mean, she's an experienced tutor, she's an assessor and everything, and she's produced some very, very, helpful videos. So there's lots of stuff out there.
mhm.
Just take it step by step. Otherwise, you end up becoming the Olympic athletes, sort of going, I've got to learn everything. It's like, no, no, no, nobody can learn everything. Just, baby steps.
Okay,
Slow and steady
so
wins the race, as we say.
okay, interesting. So, as you know, CELTA assignments for some of the teachers is like a nightmare, right? So, if I resubmit my assignments, do you think it will affect my grade?
Well, it's not what I think, it's what Auntie Cambridge says. Cambridge says it doesn't affect your grade, except. Right. It's very common for people to resubmit assignments. Um, there are many reasons to why people resubmit assignments. As a tutor, okay, first, I don't like assignments and I would happily get rid of them, but they are essential for CELTA to maintain its level 5 status in the QCA. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's why
Yeah.
they're there. And it's also very possible
Mm-hmm.
to resubmit every single assignment and you could still get a high grade. All right. So
Okay.
there are people who've resubmitted assignments and got A's and B's, and there are people who've resubmitted assignments and got pass. And there are some
Mm-hmm.
people who got the assignment right first time and got a pass. Right? So it's not always a direct correlation to your final grade. Because most of the grading on a CELTA course is for teaching practice, not the
Yeah.
assignments. It's a
Yeah.
smaller percentage. However, the only
Mm-hmm.
time the assignments affect your grade, and this is clearly outlined in the CELTA 5 booklet that you get when you start the course, um, if you fail one assignment, you cannot get a pass A, all right? Which may or may not matter to you anyway, because maybe you weren't going to get one. If you fail 2 assignments, then you fail the course. So
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, resubmissions are not the end of the world at all. But failing 2 assignments is the big no-no, and that's what you want to avoid. However, the point of the resubmission is to give you a second chance. All right. So
Mm-hmm.
more often than not, people have to resubmit their assignments because they are not used to writing in the way that we are asking them to write. And we know this. So that's why here at IH Cairo, we provide example assignments and I provide video clips and talk you through it step by step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Of course, that doesn't guarantee that you're going to get it right first time, but I've done my best, I promise, wallahi. So because of that, we've borne that in mind. This will help you, follow the second reason why people don't resubmit is because they haven't followed the instructions and they start writing things that are totally unrelated. So I've got my example that I've given you, and then you start writing something else.
Yeah.
Please leave Shakespeare at home. Okay. Shakespeare is lovely. I also studied English lit. I'm an English lit graduate, but Shakespeare doesn't belong on a CELTA course. So Mr. and Ms. Shakespeare, yalla, you don't leave them at home. They don't need to be on
Mm-hmm.
your course. So just stick to the instructions. The thing to remember with CELTA assignments is that they're very simple and very
Mm-hmm.
practical because, as I always say in the interview, I've said it a zillion times, Cambridge doesn't want you to spend weeks and weeks on your assignments, right? They're not
Yeah.
detailed research projects. It's not like doing
Mm-hmm.
your thesis, your master's, your viva. No, they're just very simple, straightforward assignments. Okay. So
Okay.
please don't get so excited about them or not so panicky. Just do your best. And as I said, Cambridge allows you a second chance. So what happens is if you resubmit, the tutor will write the things that you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you followed his or her instructions, you'll pass it the second time anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, how much practical teaching experience will I gain during the course?
Everybody on a CELTA course must receive 6 hours of assessed teaching practice. This is a
Mm-hmm.
Cambridge rule. There's no discussion. Um, so usually what happens on many courses around the world, I'm not saying all, I said many, because some of you will say to me, well, in my center, they didn't do it like that. Yes, very possible. Um, so in most cases, you do half your lessons with one level and half your lessons with another. So it's 4 with one level and 4 with another. Okay. So usually in total, it's 8 lessons because you have
Mm-hmm.
to teach a higher and a lower level. As I say, this is a Cambridge rule. So what you might also get, and this will vary from course to course and the timetable, is that you often have the chance to do some unassessed teaching. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So usually at the beginning of the course, before you start your first teaching practice, many centers have unassessed teaching where you can, bond with the students before you're graded so that you can get to know each other without the stress of being observed. Your tutor won't be in the room. They'll just sort of let you do what you're doing. Just don't kill the students or leave any marks, okay? Just, be nice to them. So
Mhm.
yes, okay? Because again, the idea of teaching the two levels is so that by the time you finish the course, you at least are familiar with using the CELTA techniques for two different levels, because you will teach grammar lessons at both levels, vocabulary lessons at both levels, skills
So I
lessons at both
cover all the
levels.
systems and skills. I teach all the systems and the skills, right? I
You'll teach
teach
systems and lessons at both
all
levels.
the, I cover all the systems and skills, right?
Well, I mean, when you say all the systems, you will do at least one systems lesson, usually two, because you're doing a vocabulary, a lexis lesson, and a grammar lesson.
Remember?
All right.
Yeah,
So you have to do two of each at each level. All right.
yeah,
Because by the time you will have finished the course, you should have done a grammar and vocabulary stroke lexis, depending on how you like to describe it,
yeah,
um, at both levels. So in our case, elementary and intermediate, right?
yeah.
And then at least one or maybe two skills lessons. What you might
Mm-hmm.
find, just to sort of make this very clear,
Mm-hmm.
is that let's say you failed one of your TPs, not the end of the world. Believe me, I did it when I did my CELTA course, and here I am. Okay.
Oh,
So if it was a grammar lesson, this is when we start worrying, think, oh, yes, he or she failed a grammar lesson. So
yeah.
sometimes we give you, what we often do actually is we give you another chance. So you might end up teaching two grammar lessons with one level because we want to be sure that you can manage a grammar lesson with that level. All right. So this is why sometimes things are moved around to help you, because remember, at the end of the course, we've got to be able to write that you can teach grammar lessons or systems, because systems covers grammar and lexis at both levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah,
Okie
interesting. So
dokie, go for it.
the repeated questions: how can I get uh, a pass A?
Ah, yes. So I'm looking at all these questions. Um, okay, of course, for most tutors, this is probably the most hated question of all. My usual response is, um, it's back to how you come to the course. Nobody can guarantee. I know there is one tutor at the moment who sort of has a little YouTube channel on sort of how to get an A, but actually, to be fair to him, he is saying the same things that all your tutors say. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Watch the sessions closely. You're usually, many of the sessions you participate in them, especially if it's a system session. We often do like a kind of demo lesson on how to teach a certain structure, and you participate as students, and then you analyze it from the teaching perspective. So a lot of CELTA sessions are a combination of loop and experiential type input, right? So pay attention, look at the stages. um, as I say, if you're teaching, a conditionals lesson, the chances are your tutors have already given you a handout on teaching conditionals. Go back to those notes. These are all the things that help you. I have noticed with people who get higher grades, they usually do these things. They've read the session notes afterwards. They have um, they have sorry, just lost my train of thought. Sorry, my cat was licking my toes. uh,
Worries.
they listen very carefully and they take notes. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I see them in the sessions. These are the people that are paying attention. And they
Mm-hmm.
don't belong to what I call the phone hugging club. you know okay, I'm old, I'm 60, all right, so I was born when there were no such thing as phones. But some of you just love your little phones, ya habibi. You can't live without it. So you sit there in the sessions like, oh, sorry, what did you say, Laura? What did you say, Ilham? Well, you're not going to get a high grade if you're living on your own little planet and playing with your phone. We're teachers. Yeah, be professional. Ya haram, yan. Put the phone
Yeah.
away. um, you would kill your students if they use their phones in class. So why on earth are you doing it? As I'm always saying, monkey see, monkey do. If we are not good role models for our students, then we can't blame them. And it's the same when you're on the CELTA course. If you are, messing with your phones, chatting to each other, having what they call a side talk, then, this is not going to help. So follow the secret to success on a CELTA course is follow your instructions. Okay. And remember, this is a British course. If your tutor says, do it like that, that's what we mean. Do it like that. Yani, kidda. Don't,
Yeah.
don't try to sort of find your own very clever way of doing things. It's like I said, go the Shakespeare route. Forget it. You know, instructions are very simple. Remember, English is a very simple language. We're not
Yeah.
sophisticated like you lovely Egyptians and Arab nations. You have a very sophisticated language. Your
Yeah.
brains are probably a lot more sophisticated than ours.
Hmm.
English is very straightforward. The course is very straightforward. Of
Yeah.
course, in TP, there are basic frameworks, and we want you to,
Fun.
enjoy being creative with the students and things like this. And
Hmm.
again, successful participants, candidates on the course, are those that make sure their students learn something, right?
Hmm.
So, you know, people who do their lesson plans in advance, not the people who 10 minutes before the lesson like, oh, I'll send you my lesson plan after TP. I mean, unless you had a power cut, something awful happened, all right. But you always, these are not the people who are going to get the high grades. They're not ready, they don't prepare, um they're not organized. And I
Yeah.
say this as the queen of the last minute. I'm the queen of procrastination. But on a CELTA course, no. I have to put that personality, that side of my personality aside and get on with it. So organization, following instructions, okay, putting the work in, focus. Okay? These are the things that will help you pass the course and inshallah, help you get a higher than pass grade. But remember, most people get passes and they get work, no problem at all. So this is what I mean by keeping it real. Remember, the percentage worldwide is between 5 and 7%. So imagine how many hundreds of people are taking CELTA around the world. I would
Yeah.
never ever think to myself that I'm that good. I'm good enough to be one of the world's top 5%. If you are, mashallah, I'm so happy for you. But don't come to the course grade obsessed. You won't enjoy the course because you'll be too fixated on your grade. It's not a competition, all
Yes.
right? And if you're fixated on getting a pass A, you're probably not going to be a very nice candidate to work with, and you're not going to be a very nice teacher because you're too focused on yourself. And this is not good for a teacher. A teacher should always think about his or her students. This is
Students.
our
Yeah.
job. We
Yeah.
want our students to learn. We want our students to practice.
Yes.
So, you know, if it's all about me, I'm going to get the highest grade because I'm an Olympic athlete and I'm going to go for gold, then you're not really thinking about your students at all, which is super, super teaching haram, yani. All right.
Yes.
So this is a road we don't want to go down. Okie
Thank
dokie.
you.
Keep going. And I can see
Okay,
lots
so
of
let's check some of the
questions.
comments.
Yes. Oh, somebody's asking about courses.
Okay, so
Ah,
Emmy is asking,
okay.
can I start the course before starting my career in teaching?
Yes, I did. Okay. Remember, CELTA
Before
is a
starting your
pre-service course. It
career?
was designed for people who'd
Mhm.
never taught a day in their lives. And that's exactly how most mother tongue speakers did their CELTA. And I will use
Mhm.
myself as an example. I'm an English Lit graduate. Now, unlike many of the courses you do in this part of the world, I didn't do any linguistics on my English Lit course. I just wrote essays about Shakespeare and Chaucer and all the other greats. And I did a bit
Mhm.
of 19th century European literature as well. I mean, because British degrees, especially during my generation, were you didn't have a major and a minor. I wanted to do English Lit, pure English Lit, and that's what I did. So, like many mother tongue speakers, I knew so little about my own grammar. I could tell you about French grammar. So yes, please don't worry about being a beginner teacher. CELTA was designed for you. Please also don't be scared by the fact that there will be experienced teachers on the course. There is a reason for this, and I will just give you a very brief history of why this has happened. Um, Look, when I did my course in 1987, CELTA was never offered outside the UK. There was only one CELTA centre outside the UK in the 80s and 90s, and that was in San Francisco, which was the sister organization of the place where I did my CELTA. All right, they had one branch. It wasn't even recognized in the States at that time in the 80s. So it was only offered in the UK. Then, when it started to be offered abroad, it was only offered usually by the British Council and some IH places. And again,
Mm-hmm.
most of the people, I mean, I can tell you from my CELTA tutoring days, were usually British and sometimes American. There weren't even local teachers on the course, right? But over time, what happened is that, perhaps because some of the foreign teachers started working at schools in various countries, and the supervisors could see a bit of a difference in their teaching. And people started thinking, right, why are they doing things like this and we're not? We've studied all this at university. We know quite a lot about it, but we don't know how to do it. So then more and more teachers started thinking, okay, I'm going to save up the money and do this course and see where it leads me. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what happened, is that more and more experienced teachers started taking the course because
Mm-hmm.
they realized that there were many benefits to getting lots of practical support. All right.
Yeah.
And then in some countries, even at schools, as in mainstream schools, um, then they started asking teachers, even if they had a teaching degree from their own country, oh, that's nice. Have you got a CELTA? And this is,
Mm-hmm.
so there are lots and lots of reasons why there will be experienced teachers on the course. But if you're inexperienced, please do not be afraid, because you both have something to offer, right? Um, so come to the course. You'll be supported, and the course will not
We're waiting for
be
you.
adapted to experienced teachers. The course
Mm-hmm.
was designed for inexperienced teachers, and that is where the course is. We're not going to, change it for the experienced teachers. So for the experienced teachers, it's a bit of revision plus the teaching techniques.
Yeah.
All righty, more questions.
Okay, so Ghaith is asking, what's better to do after CELTA?
Ah, yes,
Adaptive
TESOL or
TESOL
Delta.
or Delta? Yeah.
Right. Well, it's not a question of a better. It depends on what you want to focus on. Actually, in my own family, my mother did the DIP TESOL because my mother is a retired EFL ESOL teacher. She used to work at the British Council in the Middle East
Mm-hmm.
and Tunisia as well. And I did
Mm-hmm.
the Delta. Now, when my mum did the DIP TESOL, the Delta wasn't so well known. So these things come and go. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the Trinity Dip TESOL, basically, this is the most important thing to remember, is they are both equally recognized. The
Mm-hmm.
British Council recognizes both of them. They have equal status. It's the same with doing the CELTA, same as doing the CELTA and the Trinity TESOL certificate. I know this
Mm-hmm.
because I used to be a Trinity TESOL cert trainer many, many years ago when the dinosaurs were roaming the earth. So
Yeah.
this depends on your focus and what's available, maybe price. And the dip TESOL often has a very, very strong focus on phonology. So if you love phonology, you're a bit of a phonology monster, then perhaps the dip TESOL might be more suitable for you. But there's no, better or worse. You need to
Mm.
look at both programs really carefully, you know, look at the course content. Okay. Look at how long you have to do the course. What options are available? Is it full time? Is it part time? Do you have the option of online or face to face? Okay. Is it offered in your country? Some countries only offer the Delta, some countries only offer the Dip TESOL, right? So it
Yeah.
varies quite a lot. So I won't say one is better than the other because they're not. I mean, like I said, my mum did the Dip TESOL, okay, and her phonological knowledge was way better than mine for a very long time. No, I've just managed to catch up with her, but she's retired now, um, so that, but I mean, I did the Delta and it was amazing. But they all have different things. And also when I did my Delta, um, it wasn't even called Delta then. The old name was the Dip Tefla, which is the old name for Delta. Um,
Okay.
I only had one way to do it, which was part-time over 9 months. We did it from start to finish. So,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, it depends what options are available. I was just fortunate that I worked at a place where they were willing to pay for it.
Mm-hmm. Was it
So
three modules the
I
same
took it
as
like that.
Delta?
Sorry?
Three modules, right?
Sorry?
You said Delta in the past was called Dip Tefla,
Ah,
right?
the Dip Tefla.
Yeah,
Yes,
was it three
yes.
modules
Like
the same
CELTA
as?
used to be called Prep Cert TEFL.
Mm, nice.
They all these are all later names. These all names all came later. CELTA changed names many times before it became CELTA.
Mm-hmm.
Things branding.
Yeah,
Um,
branding.
Now somebody's also asked a question about the next course.
Which
That they said they couldn't get hold of us.
what?
Oh, Andre, hello, hello. My lovely friend from Ukraine and dear esteemed colleague. Somebody asked about face-to-face courses. If you haven't been able to get in touch with us, we will get in touch with you. A couple of people have said they've been trying to ask about course information. All right. We have
Yeah,
an
our
April face-to-face
moderators
full-time course
will
coming up
contact
and
them.
part-time, so we'll get in touch. So send
Yes.
us your details, post them in the comments, and we'll get back to you. Right. I can see
We
this
have
question.
here. Yeah.
Ah, Abdulazim, hello. And he's asked a very good question as one of
Yes.
my ex-CELTA babies. It says, to what extent do you think a CELTA candidate's pronunciation affects his or her grading? Right.
Yeah.
Um, the important thing is to be clear. I don't
Mhm.
care if you have an Egyptian accent or a Sudanese accent or a Gulf accent, because we all have accents. I
Yes.
know in Egypt we have this weird disease. And anybody who knows me and many other mother tongue English speakers, the one thing that we all really hate are fake accents, the fake British accent, the fake American accent. You're not fooling any of us. And it sounds horrible in many
Yeah.
cases. But the problem is not to be horrible to you. It's nice that you like a certain accent. That's fine. It really is. But do be careful that you're not so obsessed with the accent that you end up mispronouncing other words,
Mm-hmm.
thinking that you have this accent. Now, a horrible thing happened to me on a course, um, and the person failed their lesson because they mispronounced all the target vocabulary, thinking that they were pronouncing the words with an American accent. Believe me, they weren't. Even though I'm English, I know what an American accent is because I've been watching American cartoons and TV since I was 5 years old. That's 55 years, all right? I've also worked with loads of American colleagues, and we do get American candidates on our CELTA courses. So we know. And it was really sad because, it was heartbreaking that I had to fail that lesson, but that's the criteria, you know, always comes back to the criteria. One of the criteria is 2D language models. So a lesson will fail if we cannot understand what you're saying.
Understand.
And
Yeah.
to make it worse, that you drill that mispronunciation. So please, please,
Mhm.
please, please, please focus on speaking clearly and accurately. All right.
Yeah.
So that's when a CELTA candidate's pronunciation affects his or her grading, is when they mispronounce, and usually because they were so worried about having the accent. Don't
Mm.
worry about accents. We all have accents. I have accents when I try to speak Arabic. It's obvious that I'm an English person trying to speak Arabic because, Ana Inglesia, what can I do? I speak very good Turkish, but they know that I'm not Turkish. I might be
Mm.
able to catch people out, a bit occasionally, but most of the time my accent, gives me away. I'm not a native speaker of those languages. So in
We have
general,
here.
it does not affect
Yeah.
your grading,
Sorry.
but
Mm-hmm.
only when it goes wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we have here an amazing question for Reem. She's asking, should it be better if I start with TEFL first before having the CELTA course?
Before doing the CELTA. Hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
doing the CELTA course.
again, depends on you. Maybe if you're a beginner, you might find it helpful. Of course, my boss will want me to say yes because we want to get lots of money from you. This all depends on your circumstances. We know that everybody's, struggling with money these days. TEFL is a very useful thing to do if as a preparation. All right,
Mm-hmm.
it can help a lot. Um,
Yeah.
if you're if you can't afford to do both, it might be better to go straight into the CELTA.
Mm-hmm.
But, I won't say do the TEFL and the CELTA if you can't afford to do both. If you can, great idea. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Because it will help you a lot, but it is not compulsory. All right. It's like everything else. The more preparation you do, the better. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The secret to doing well on any course, isn't it, is preparation and commitment. So you can prepare by doing some reading, you can prepare by doing a course, or just do what you need to do. Those are personal decisions. I'm not going to ask people to bankrupt themselves. Okay.
Mr. Khalaf is saying, good evening.
Oh, hello, hello, hello. The king of the professional development. Oh, hello, hello, hello, hello, hello, hello. Ah, yes, a lot of people have asked about preparation. Somebody's also asked about important books for Delta. Please post your email. I can give you some links. All right, because we are talking about CELTA. Somebody says, what affects the grading of CELTA the most? TP, teaching practice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, Cambridge will never give us an exact percentage, but
Mm-hmm.
most of the grading on a CELTA course is on the focus is on the teaching. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So your TPs are what decide your final grade. Okay. As I said, the only time the assignments affect your grade is if you failed two, then yelahui, we have a problem. Because we don't want you to fail the course. And if you failed one, you don't get an A. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So in general, just resubmit, do the best you can. If the assignments are mostly correct, don't worry. But
Mm-hmm.
spend most of your time on the course planning your lessons. Okay, that's where you should be spending most of your time. All right. Yes, of course, we want you to, do your assignments properly, but you should be spending more time on lesson planning than you do on assignments. So that's why it's so important to just follow the instructions for the assignments, get them out of the way, and get down to the lesson planning. Be focused.
I am Mu'taz is asking
Somebody's
about
thinking about the
Delta.
grade.
Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Khalif. Okay, so I is asking again about the preparation. I think we answered this question, but she's asking also about
Mm.
recommendations for books she can read before joining the CELTA.
Ah, if you've already been accepted, there's a book list already in the pre-course task. If you haven't, again, Learning Teaching is a good one. Jim Scrivener, Macmillan Books for Teachers. Um, Mohammed, what's that book by David? What's his name? That's very, very good. While he's here, he can refresh my memory. The Practice of English Language Teaching, Jeremy Harmer. These are the sort of the two books that we often recommend. All right. As somebody said,
Mhm.
revising the rules and things like that. Yes. So these are two very, very useful books. Like I said, you don't have to eat the books, okay? But just dip into them as much as
Mhm.
possible. And as I
Yeah.
say, read little bits, start with the important things
And there is
and
another
then
book Mr.
go
Khalaf
step
has
by
just
step.
mentioned right now. It's called Teach EFL for David.
Sorry.
Mr. Khalaf has just mentioned another book. It's called Teach EFL for David.
That's it. Thank you, Mohammed.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, thank you. Thank you very, very
Okay,
much.
so Marwa is having
All right.
Marwa
Do
is
we have
asking
any other questions there?
another one,
Yes.
yeah. What after CELTA as
Ah,
a
yes.
school?
Mm, okay. This comes back to the keeping it real here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Remember what CELTA was designed for, right? CELTA was designed for you to be able to teach at a language center or a university foundation program. Okay. This is what
Mm-hmm.
it qualifies you for. What it does not necessarily, and we're totally honest about this, a CELTA does not mean you'll get a job in one of the best international schools. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because for an international school or any school, what we call a mainstream school where children go to school, these are called mainstream schools. In any country in the world, they expect a teaching degree.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This is normal. It's the same in my country, and it's the same in every country I've ever visited. So this is universal. You might get a better chance of working at that international school if you have a CELTA. All right. And some of our teachers have managed that, but it is not a guarantee. And we've always been very clear about this. Because every now and again I'll see somebody complaining about the CELTA in one of the Facebook groups. And, oh, I spent all this money and I can't work at this international school and I couldn't get a job. It's like, well, we kind of told you this, that we couldn't guarantee it. Or maybe you applied to a place that was super prestigious, that only accepts teaching degrees from certain countries or certain backgrounds, and doesn't, CELTA won't be enough. CELTA was not designed for that. If you get that job at an international school with your CELTA, then Alf Mabruk, great, but it doesn't guarantee it. If you are already a school teacher, then of course this is a nice little extra for you because it will have improved your teaching skills, and either you'll decide to stay where you're working, or you'll perhaps decide to work at a language center or work at a university if you want a career change. Or, because many of my teachers I've noticed are also happy to continue teaching kids because many of the techniques are transferable. You can't use everything on the CELTA course for teaching kids, especially very young, young learners, as in, very young learners like KG or, the sort of 5, 6, 7 to 10. Some of those things you can't use, but you can still do things like test, teach, test with 10, 11-year-olds. You can do a bit of guided discovery with 11, 12-year-olds. They're cognitively capable. But of course, you can't do it with a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old because you're going to do different things. You're not going to do grammar analysis. So, what's the past participle of go? Asking a 6-year-old. All right, of course.
All right.
So because again, CELTA didn't promise to prepare you for those institutions. So, remember that CELTA does what it says on the packet. It doesn't
He,
pretend
yeah,
to
he's just
do
she's sorry,
things that
she's
it
just asking
doesn't.
you. My question. She's asking that she's already working in a good school, but she wants to
Yes,
start working in a
great.
university. So how to do so?
CELTA will help. Sure,
Mhm,
which is what I was coming to, because some private universities in Egypt, for example, are beginning to ask for it. So,
mhm,
and Mohammed Khalaf can answer that question for us as well. Some private universities require the CELTA to work on their foundation programs, and that is the same in other countries. All right, I can't tell you exactly every country. I know from working in Turkey, it can be a big help. Many of the teachers have a degree and their CELTA, and they work on foundation programs. So this is what CELTA was designed for, as I said at the beginning, actually, that,
mhm.
a CELTA can get you a job working at a university. Government universities may or may not accept it. Okay, and this will vary from country to country. Okay,
Yeah.
so, but private universities, very likely. Okay, all
Okay, so
righty.
that's
Do we
all.
have anything else before we disappear?
Yeah.
Somebody's asking about money. Okay. And greetings to everybody here. Lovely to see my CELTA babies, Magdi, Niazi, Abdulazim, and lovely Marwa, blah, blah, blah, blah, blah. Yes. And May. Oh my goodness me. Wow. Guys, yes. Oh, all my lovely CELTA babies. Mwah, mwah. And dear friends, big hugs from afar. Absolutely wonderful to see you all. And if you have any questions, feel free.
Isil is
Are you willing to?
saying,
Yes. This is what somebody was asking about the
say
face-to-face
hi
course,
to
right? So
say
again,
hi to Isil and
Rawia, have
Ilham.
you got it? Yeah. Then she can ask her. All right. And is anybody else? Blah blah blah
Can
blah
you
blah
hear
blah
me?
blah. Any preparation? Yes, I think we've kind of answered all the questions, haven't we? Thank you,
Laura,
Salwa. Blah
say
blah
hi
blah.
to Isil and Ilham.
Is Aysel here? Ya
Yes.
canım. İyi akşamlar. Öpüyorum. Nasılsın? İyi misin? And İlham, ya Habibti, wahdini. We work together, but because of Ramadan, we're all working at home. So we
Yeah.
only contact each other on WhatsApp. I've forgotten what real people look like. All I know about people is that they have heads and shoulders. Khalas. See? I haven't seen people with arms and legs, except on Saturday. So lovely, lovely, lovely. Yes, the lovely Mohammed Khalif, ever informative. He said most of the private universities ask for the CELTA now. There you are. This is the one that knows better than any of us on that one. All righty. Please ask, somebody's asked about details of timings. Right, okay. Most CELTA courses, well, I will answer for our own CELTA course. Most CELTA courses run from 9 a.m. Cairo time until about 6/6:30 p.m. Cairo time. Okay. This all depends on, if we can start our teaching practice on time, because our teaching practice is supposed to start from 2 p.m. and run till 4:30 p.m. But we have to wait for our students to arrive. Now, sometimes our students' idea of 2 p.m. is a bit more Egyptian than my idea of 2 p.m. I'm happy with, 5 past, but many of them turn up at about 2:15 and sometimes later. So if we start on time, we finish on time with the feedback and everything else. But if we start later, then we finish later. Okay. Fees, you can ask the customer service people. And somebody also very naughtily asked, is it better to take it with you or the British Council? What do you think my answer is going to be? Well, look, just remember, we are all friends, all the CELTA tutors in Egypt. And this is a worldwide thing. CELTA tutors are a bit like a family. Either we all know each other, or we know our friends' friends. Okay, so we don't say bad things about each other, because we might find out that somebody, oh, she's my friend or he's my friend. But in Egypt, we have all worked together. We all know each other. All right. So the lovely Khalif, Hamid, Shadi, the lovely Nick at the British Council, and the lovely Abir at Faros, we have all worked together at some stage in our careers. We know each other. So I'm never going to say to you, one place is better than another. All right. Even though, yes, today I've got my IH hat on, I work at IH. But everybody, you are very fortunate in Egypt. You have a lot of skilled and experienced tutors. All right. So, everybody has different opinions of who is a better tutor. And there might be lots of, there might be very good reasons for that, the way he or she does their input sessions, or in many cases, it's because of personality. Maybe you like our personalities, or you don't like our personalities. um, I'm sure there are plenty of candidates that don't like me very much, and that's okay. I'm not here to be loved, but the teacher's disease. We all want to be loved, don't we? But that's, you can't like everybody, and I don't expect them to. So, but the important thing is that all the CELTA courses to run here are run to Cambridge standards, and that's
But
the
all love
number
you,
one.
Laura.
If you go to school that money,
All love you,
that's
Laura.
what you need to.
All candidates love you.
I
Yes.
pay them well.
Yeah.
Money's coming. فلوس كتير. I'll just throw it at you يعني. يعني كده, yeah? Like the
Yeah, okay,
weddings.
yes.
Exactly. All righty. I don't think we have any more questions, do we? Are we
No,
safe?
no, no, no, no, no questions, no
Oh
other
my
questions.
God.
Yeah.
Somebody's having a little panic about starting. Da, da, da. Oh my goodness. Accreditation. Everybody's oh, you mean somebody asked about the accreditation of the online. Is your question, sorry, I had to put my glasses on for this. Um Yasser, yeah? You asked about the accreditation. Right. Okay. I know some countries do not necessarily recognize online courses. Right.
Mhm.
Okay, thing to remember, if you do the CELTA online, it is not written on your certificate. Okay. So
Mm.
you do not have to worry about that part. The only place where it is written is in your final report. Okay. So usually nowadays we're supposed to write, if you did the course online, we write it in the final report. We're also supposed to write that when you do face-to-face as well. There's a sort of new Cambridge guidelines, but that's it. On your certificate, it just shows your grade, your center number where you took the course, but it doesn't mention whether you did it online or face-to-face. That's all I can tell you. I hope that answers your question, because I know some people worry about that, because it depends on the countries. Okay. Blah, blah, blah, blah, blah. All righty. TP is also online. Yes, if you do the
Yeah,
online CELTA, everything is online. Your sessions are online, your TP is online, the TP students also, everything is online from start to finish. So it's all organized. You can do group work, pair work, and everything, just the same as you can do face to face. Just takes a bit of slightly different organization,
yeah.
but you do
So,
all the stuff pretty well. Nearly everything that you do on a face to face, you do online.
Muhammad also
Okay.
is asking,
I
is
hope
there
that
a
made you feel a bit
course?
more at ease.
Muhammad is asking, is there a course he can take before CELTA in order to not to panic or get lower marks or grade or even fail the course?
It doesn't change. Well, as I said before, we've kind of answered this question before. Yes, I mean, if you want to do any kind of preparation course before, always a good idea.
Mhm.
But again, it doesn't, you see, if you're panicking about grades, then you're coming in with the wrong mindset. You're worrying about grades instead of you developing yourself. So
Yeah,
panicking is fine, because panicking it shows that you're worried and that you're conscientious and that you want to improve. Bravo, chapeau, mashallah. Okay. But, um, don't think that doing that course will ensure a higher grade, because, you know, unfortunately, I'm not a fortune teller. I don't have my crystal ball ready, to tell me whether you'll get a higher grade or not. In a dream world, I would love it if all my candidates got A's and B's, but then Cambridge would probably investigate me because they'd find it all very suspicious, because of the worldwide percentages. They'd be like, what's she doing? She must be faking the results. So, yes, do the preparation. We've recommended some reading material, the pre-course task. This is enough. And if you would like to do some kind of preparation course beforehand, a TEFL, a CELTA preparation, that's absolutely fine. If it helps to make you feel, more prepared and less likely to
comfortable.
panic,
Yeah.
do it. All right.
Mhm.
You know, um, but as I say, don't sort of see it as a guarantee, because recently we've had, and it happens every now and again, people not being happy with their grades, and they're like, oh, but I have an amazing background. I did this course, I did that course, I read all these books. I should get an A or a B. It's like, yes, mashallah, you did a lot of preparation, but I can only grade as a CELTA tutor based on the criteria of what I see and hear in your teaching practice. I can't
Mhm.
grade your reading. It's not in the criteria. Just as some people say, oh, but I worked really hard, and other people didn't work as hard as me. Well, A, I'd like you to prove it, because that's not always Just because you see somebody, hanging around or hanging out at the center doesn't mean they're not working, like little squirrels at home. But again, it's not in the criteria. These things are not written. So we grade on what we see and hear in TP. But preparation is good. I'm all for preparation. Do as much as you feel you need to do. Okay? But don't kill yourselves, because we're going to kill you on the CELTA course. It's my job.
Now I'm
All
worried.
right. Is there anything else we need to answer? On the level of countries, I don't understand that question. I would like to try to answer that before we leave. Russia has written, I don't quite understand. It says, on the level of countries, does it really make a difference? Could you perhaps explain that a bit more, please? Because I don't really understand that question. Do you mean that different countries regard the course differently?
Yeah, I think she means this.
Hmm. Well, yes, of course. I mean, of course, it's universally accepted for teaching at language centers and foundation programs at universities. But okay, if you're talking about, for example, an EU country, a European Union country, some people are like, oh, well, I want to go and work in Germany or France or something like that. Now, they do accept CELTA as well. But they might have different regulations. The main obstacle to working in a European Union country is because you don't have a European Union passport. And
Yeah.
neither do I, because the stupid people in my own country voted to leave the EU. So I can't work in, France, Germany, or Spain anymore without going through, rigorous work permit procedures. All right. So that might be your issue, is that, it's a regulation problem, not because of Europe being racist. That is it. It's like the GCC thing, the Gulf cooperation countries, who allow people to come in without visas between their own countries. The GCC is just another version of that in many ways. So, but most countries accept it. It's, people use it in Asia, in the Far East, in China, Japan, blah, blah, blah. Especially, I would say Asia, Africa, Europe, CELTA is very much widely accepted. And it is also accepted a lot in the US now, because there are many years ago, CELTA wasn't really offered very often in the United States, but it is offered in many states now, which means that it has become more recognized. Okay. And there are centers in Central and South America, not as many as Europe or the Middle East, but it is possible. So it is more universal than you might realize. Okay. Well, somebody said unaffordable. Well,
Yeah.
yes. So you could do, your TEFL course instead. So remember what we said about unaffordable. So yes, if you want to do the TEFL because, you don't have the money to do the CELTA, do a TEFL. All right. It's a very good alternative because you're going to cover many of the same subjects that you cover on the CELTA. And many countries will bear it in mind. Some countries might not accept it, but in Egypt, many places will accept your TEFL, and
Yeah.
some other countries too. All right, CELTA is the most widely known, but in some places, TEFL is very, very useful. So if you haven't got the money to pay for the CELTA, do this, because all development is good. We don't all have lots of money. All right. But like I said, remember what we said about money? Because 45,000 for a CELTA, 70,000 for an iPhone. Expensive air. Okay. So things to think about. All right. I think we
Okay.
should let people go to bed or do some more
Yeah.
eating before suhoor.
Or yeah,
So
following the
I would
Ramadan
like to
series.
thank the lovely Engy. So
Thank you
Ramadan
so much
Kareem, but
for having me today,
I didn't
Laura.
get the chance to thank you last time for our live, so sorry to interrupt you. Thank you so much for organizing this. It's always lovely to see her nice
Okay.
beaming smile. Okay, so
Thank you so
thank
much. Love
you very
you.
much.
Thank you. Thank you for this informative live video. Thank you. Bye.
Remember, if you have questions, put your email in there and we'll get back to you. Okay, things like course fees, blah blah blah, book titles. Have a lovely evening. Thank you very very much for attending, and lovely to see so many familiar names. Hope to
Yeah.
see your faces very soon.
Yeah, and
Bye
عيد
bye.
سعيد. كل سنة وانتم طيبين. عيد سعيد عليكم. Bye.
كل سنة وانت طيبين. صح. Yes.